Hello friends, I welcome you to our class on rights issues, and आज का topic is very important. It's going to be on transgender rights. This topic has been asked by UPSC and it becomes important from both prelims as well as mains. So this video is going to cover everything that you need to know about transgender rights, be it for UPSC or any other competitive examination. So let's jump right into the class itself. Now, when we talk about a transgender person, the first thing that comes to our mind is what is the definition of transgender person? And this is important for you to understand that when the Transgender Person's Protection of Rights Bill came, they defined a transgender person as a person who does not match the gender assigned at birth. इसका मतलब यह है कि it depends on the perception of the person itself. So it depends how the person perceives themselves. Do they perceive them by the gender that was ascribed to them at birth or not? So the onus lies on the person itself. And this is where that self-identification, self-recognition part comes in. And it includes trans men, trans women, person with intersex variations, gender queers, and person with socio-cultural identities such as Kinner, Hijra, or any other historical term that they've been called by. So for the first time, the bill identifies the person as how they recognize themselves, right? So that is the definition of transgender of a transgender person. And if you look at the Constitution, our Constitution, looking back to all the rights issues videos that we've had and all the classes that we've had, we understand that the Constitution does not differentiate between anyone. The Constitution ascribes to give equality to everyone. Article 14 talks about equality before the law and equal protection of the law within the territory of India. It does not discriminate who these people are. It's for everyone. Same thing goes with Article 15 and Article 16, where they talk about you cannot discriminate against a person based on religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. And this term sex also includes psychological sex or the gender identity that the person perceives themselves to be from. So you cannot discriminate between a person just because they are a trans person. Now, Article 15 and 16 are part of the government instrument. But as we'll see, the bill itself says that when it comes to employment, no one can discriminate against a person just because they belong to a particular sex or sexual orientation. Then we have Article 21. The Article 21, after the Putaswamy judgment, gained a much broader scope. Article 21 had already recognized a person's right to life and is to live with dignity, to choose their own marriage partners, to choose who they want to be with. So this choice was identified in Article 21, and later it got expanded post the Putaswamy judgment and as we'll see, with the Navtej Singh Johar judgment, to include that a person, how they identify themselves, comes under right to privacy, which is again under Article 21. And then finally Article 41, which says that it's the onus of the state to make effective provisions for securing right to work, to education, and to public assistance to everyone. So it's not, the Constitution not only says that there should not be any discrimination, there should be equality, but the onus is on the state. State को provide करना पड़ेगा for their right to work, their education, as well as public assistance. Right? And this is what we see when we look into how the legislation has come about when it comes to the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Bill 2019. Bill ne kya kiya? The bill gave us the definition of a transgender person. For the first time, we had a legally recognized definition, which was, as we saw, that a person who does not ascribe to the gender that was assigned to them at birth. Then the bill also gave the right to the transgender person themselves to go ahead and claim self-recognition. They can go to a district magistrate, apply for a certification that they are a transgender person, and this can be later on revised. This application can be later on revised if they go under certain medical procedure or sex change procedures and they want to be re-ascribed as not only a trans woman or a man, but also as a man or a woman once they get their sex change done. So the bill itself gives these two rights. It recognizes the transgender person and it gives them the ability to self-recognize, to self-identify as a transgender person. The next is prohibition against discrimination. As we've seen, Article 15 and 16 talk about the same thing, कि discrimination nahi hona chahiye. The bill clearly states that any entity, be it a government body or any other body, cannot discriminate against transgender persons to a point which goes towards discrimination when it comes to access to public places, education, health opportunities, and different schemes just because they belong to the transgender community. Usi ka hi two other forms would be right to residence and right to employment, where you cannot deny residence to a person. A transgender person has the right to residence and has the right to residence of his own household. And if somehow the family is not able to take care of the transgender person, then a competent court can go ahead and order the state to provide a rehabilitation center or a place of rehabilitation for the transgender person. Because the court also recognizes that transgender people have been discriminated for a very long time. We ourselves have seen, living in this community, in this society, we've known what the status of transgender person is when it comes to our own society. So the court recognizes that and says, talks about, with that same tone, talks about right to residence. This next thing is employment, where it says that you cannot, no entity can deny employment to a person just because they belong to the transgender community. And in fact, there should be a complaint officer, or there should be a complaint department to register complaints where there's a violation of this right that is being conferred by the bill itself, the right to employment. Again, same thing with the education, be it a government funded or a government recognized institution, they cannot discriminate against transgender people, and they have to provide equal opportunities when it comes to education, recreation, as well as sports facilities. Everything that is being provided to any normal person should be provided equally to a transgender person. Healthcare, again, the state not only they can't deny, but at the same time they have to make provisions for healthcare, be it specific schemes, specific insurance schemes, specific medical facilities, be it facilities for proactive care of HIV patients, or be it health sex change clinics. All these needs to be provided by the state itself. The onus lies on the state to provide such holistic healthcare. Now, anyone who obviously is in violation of is doing discrimination, violation of giving employment or education, will be charged with offences and penalties to make sure that people actually abide by this. Agar punishment nahi hoga to log karenge kyun? Now, and that is one of the reasons, right? And in offences and penalties, you'll see that they range between 6 months to 2 years, and with the fine varying on the degree of the crime being, or the discrimination being committed. Then finally, we talk about the welfare measures made by the government. Now, the welfare measures, the bill directs the government to make welfare measures, and under this, the government has made certain welfare measures. And the first thing that comes, which comes directly from the bill itself, is the National Council for Transgender Person. The National Council for Transgender Person is a statutory body formed under the Transgender Rights Bill, which we just spoke about, the 2019 bill. It has the Union Minister as the chairperson. It has the Minister of State of Social Justice, Union Minister of Social Justice as the chairperson. It has the Minister of State as the vice person, Secretary of the Ministry of Social Justice, but most importantly, the council will also consist of 5 members from the transgender community and 5 experts from non-governmental organization. The whole idea of this is to include transgender people into in the committee itself, in the council itself, and the council by this will provide holistic guidelines and holistic reports and provisions to the government itself, will provide these things to make sure that the government itself can proactively work towards the transgender community, towards the welfare of the transgender community. That's the whole idea of the National Council of Transgender Person. It's going to provide guidelines, it's going to be the guide to the government policies that are particularly made for transgender person. So that is the National Council for Transgender Person, which comes under the bill. It's a statutory body. It comes from the bill. Then comes the SMILE. Now, SMILE is going to be a national level umbrella scheme, which is going to have 2 sub-schemes and the most important here is the comprehensive rehabilitation of welfare transgender person when we talk about transgender people, and then it is also going to include the important comprehensive rehabilitation of person engaged in act of begging. Now, the SMILE, the umbrella scheme has provisions of not only recognition of transgender persons, but it also has portals for providing them scholarships, providing them places where they can get skill development, upskilling of themselves. It also has places, it is also a place where any grievances can be redressed. So it's a umbrella scheme. And under this, the specific scheme for registration is the National Portal for Transgender Person. ये जो नेशनल पोर्टल बनाया गया है, ये इसलिए बनाया गया है जिससे ट्रांसजेंडर पीपल कैन गो अहेड एंड रजिस्टर देमसेल्व्स एज ट्रांसजेंडर without having to deal with any physical interaction with officials, because that not only delays but also sometimes it's not as supportive, and transgender person shouldn't be at the mercy of someone else's discretion, right? So that's the reason why the National Portal for Transgender Person was created. Right now, if you go and look at the portal, as of the recording, I saw that the highest number of transgender certificates being given is in the state of Odisha. Then comes the Garima Griha. The Garima Griha is a shelter home for transgender person, which provides basic amenities like food, medical care, and recreational facilities. This is specifically built for transgender people who don't have a home, who are either below poverty line or who are not able to who are suffering from medical ailments and not able to economically support themselves, or especially when they don't have support from anywhere else. So these shelter homes were created for this. Right now there are 12 shelter homes all over India, spread across a few different states, and they ensure that they get not only the basic amenities but also capacity building and skill development of these transgender persons are done so that they can integrate themselves as an independent person in the society, right? And then comes PM Daksh. Now PM Daksh, you must have read before that it's a skill development scheme for backward classes, scheduled castes and Safai Karmacharis, but iske under they have a specific provision for transgender people as well under PM Daksh for again skill development of transgender people, where a transgender person can go and get themselves registered, go to a skill development center under a PM Daksh and then get employment based on that skill development, right? And then finally, as I told you, that the maximum number of transgender certificates being registered right now is from the state of Odisha. The government of Odisha recognizes this, and they made a scheme known as the Swikruti scheme, which is a holistic scheme that not only looks into just the condition of the transgender people, but also provides them with skill development, provides them with economical opportunity, provides them home and basic amenities in the state of Odisha. And it's such a pioneering scheme that other states have also spoken about adopting the Swikruti scheme, right? Now, as we've seen that this transgender rights bill has come, which has recognized and given so many rights to transgender people, and we've seen already that the constitution already speaks about equality for all. Then based on these two, you would find that they went hand in hand with certain landmark judgments that came when it comes to the transgender community that ensured that the bill comes out, that ensured that these schemes are formed. And we're going to talk about the 5 major landmark judgments that came when it comes to transgender rights. The first, as you might have already heard, is the NAS Foundation case that was in 2009. Now, back in 2009, for the first time, the NAS Foundation appealed against the criminalization of Section 377, which criminalized consensual sex between 2 same-sex adults. They said that law came in 1861. It was a British law and it was a draconic law. The wind of the society has completely changed, and this was back in 2009, and the Delhi High Court actually pioneered it and recognized it. It decriminalized Section 377 of the IPC and held that it was unconstitutional, and it discriminated against the LGBTQ community of the country and violated their privacy as individuals. But the problem happened when in 2003, in the Kaushal judgment of 2013, in this judgment, reversed the NAS judgment. It reversed the NAS judgment and recriminalized Section 377 by saying that only the Supreme Court has the onus to decriminalize Section 377. Now, keeping this in mind, let's go forward. Keeping this in mind, that Section 377 from being decriminalized went to its original status after the Kaushal 2013 judgment. Then we have the Nalsa judgment of 2014 that for the first time talks about the transgender community as a whole and recognizes the third gender and talks about self-identification of gender for the first time and says that the gender should go beyond its binary nature, which is men and women, to recognize every single gender that exists out there through self-identification of the person identifying themselves. So this was a landmark judgment when it comes to the rights of transgender people, that for the first time recognized legal protection for the third gender and recognized who the third gender was. This was the driving force when it came to the Transgender Protection of Rights Bill. And then we have again the big landmark judgment, the Justice Puttaswamy judgment for privacy, which again, with these two, the 2014 and the 2017 judgment, we'll see that when Justice Puttaswamy judgment spoke about privacy, it spoke about the privacy of the members of the LGBTQIA community and said that it is an inalienable right, and it granted them autonomy and protection from the state when it came to exercising their right of choosing their own partners. So right to privacy here and the recognition of the third gender, with these two in mind, when the Navteej Singh Johar case came in 2018, it went ahead and decriminalized the Section 377. There was a very beautiful judgment that was given in Navteej Singh Johar, which said that the court reasoned that discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation was violative of the right to equality, and criminalizing consensual sex between adults in private was violative of right to privacy. Right? So with these three judgments, with the Nalsa judgment, the Puttaswamy judgment and the Navteej Singh Johar judgment, for the first time a transgender person had equal rights when it came to choosing a partner or living their life with dignity the way they wanted to be. Because now they could self-identify as their own, whatever the gender they want to identify as. They could choose the partner and they could enjoy their own privacy without any violation. And obviously the legislation, the 2019 Protection of Rights judgment again gave them all the rights equivalent to any other normal person in a society. The only one question that was remaining here was the question of marriage, when it comes to the marriage between a man and a trans woman. And that question got answered in the Arun Kumar versus the Inspector General of Registration 2019. Now in this judgment, why this is a landmark judgment is because till this date, the Hindu Marriage Act recognized the marriage between a man and a woman. But what happens when a man marries a trans woman? So, like, if you look into the judgment, the funny case was that the registrar refused to register the marriage because the person was not a woman, she was a trans woman. So this judgment, when was read, the judgment expanded the category of women to include transgender people to identify as women to be brides as well. So this judgment, alongside with all these judgments and all the legislation and all the schemes, for the first time made sure that the transgender people become fully functional part of the society and they get to live their life the way they want to live their life without any discrimination. And this, my friends, concludes our class on transgender rights. So this should give you an overview of most of the questions that are asked in UPSC and should make you capable of writing a really good answer when it comes to mains. I hope you liked it and I wish you all the best for your examination. I'll see you in the next video.